Okay, good morning, everyone. So this time, I've actually gotten a little more organized and I've written down the agenda of the different things that we're going to talk about today. There's still some time, I believe, will be left at the end where we can talk about things that aren't in the agenda that we haven't been able to cover or something. Um, if you already have a link to the agenda docs, yeah, pasting it here. You don't have it, I've just pasted it. Um, I want to start with the deprecation of external ID in favor of instance ID. I invited Mike Denise from a different SIG. I think he's working with multiple SIGs, but I also know Anoop, who's also on this call, is working on it. There's a pull request. Anoop, can you post a
Yeah,
link to the pull request, please?
sure.
Yes, SIG-auth is currently interested in removing external ID.
So,
Cool.
so
So is Mike working with SIGAuth now?
Yeah,
Okay. Oh, that was you, Mike. Okay. So I believe there are two pull requests which are trying to do
yeah,
the same thing.
yeah. The first one is the PR opened by me, and the second one is by the other person. So I
yeah.
see like the files change are like the issue which he's trying to fix is almost the same. I didn't. I mean, I think so. It's the duplicate.
Yeah, I hadn't actually noticed your PR. So, and yours has much more review on it. So I would like to have yours merged in the 1.11 merge window, if at all possible. I can tell you the motivation behind that if you guys would like.
Yeah,
Absolutely, yes.
I don't really know the correlation to SIGAuth, so yeah, please do.
So currently, there's a permission for a node, according to the node authorizer, is allowed to delete its node object and recreate it. And the only reason it would ever do this currently is if the external ID changes. So I think there was a comment on your PR that said there's some kubelet changes, and you were wondering why that was the case. It was because of this functionality inside the kubelet. This is problematic from a strong, if we want to implement strong exclusion using taints, because you can see a circumstance where an operator adds a taint that says compromised to a specific node, and the node can delete itself and recreate itself, and the new node object won't have that taint. So we're trying to remove the permission, and the last thing that we need to do to remove that permission is to remove external ID from the API. And it seems like it's been deprecated long enough since 1.1 that it's about time to remove it. So I think your PR removes only the external ID from the cloud provider interface. I would also recommend going ahead and removing it from the kubelets node object at this time. You can do that, or we can do it in a follow-up. I don't mind. Either way works for us.
Okay, so yeah, I actually I tried to remove external ID from the kubelet instance, but we thought it involves many different SIGs, so then I didn't remove it. Yeah.
So Mike, would you be able to approve a pull request that Anoop would make that removes it from kubelet? The original concern was that it requires coordination from multiple SIGs, and really changing the API was something that we generally try not to do. So given that you're also interested in this, there's another SIG also involved. Say Anoop makes a PR, will you be able to help us push it?
Yeah, I'm happy to accumulate the approvals
Okay.
that we need.
Okay, sounds good. So Anoop, there's your answer. We can actually go ahead and make the changes in kubelet as well. So does it at all overlap, Mike, with what you've already made in the pull request?
I think Yes, you can reference mine, or yeah, just I have removed that stuff from both the API and the kubelet. If you want to just copy those changes over, do what you want.
Well, if you've already done it, why would, I mean, I don't see.
Yeah.
Right, if you've already done it, should we still go ahead and do it? What's the...
Yeah. Let's move forward with your PR in its current state and get that merged, and then I can rebase on top of it, if that sounds reasonable.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Did you get that, Anup?
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, so
so right now, like with AWS and Google Cloud, the only problem is instance ID is returning different string format than external ID. So that was the issue last time we faced. So
okay. Sorry, go ahead.
So I was thinking, like, can we have a check to see whether the format, does it include the availability zone? And if it includes, then there are some inbuilt methods for AWS, like map to AWS name or something similar to that. Can that logic work? Because I didn't see that one in Mike's PR. Maybe that because he's removing the external ID entirely from API.
So I have notes that GC instance ID and AWS instance ID were the only ones that were
having this problem.
Confused a little bit. I am happy to have Justin Santa Barbara weigh in on this. I can send him an email. From the GC instance ID, I didn't see any obvious issue.
Okay.
We have Walter here from GC. Walter, do you have something to
add? No, not particularly. It's actually on my list to deal with. And in fact, Mike is also from GCE.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that. Sorry.
Yeah, no worries. I think Justin can weigh in on the AWS stuff. I am tempted to, we're pretty early in the merge cycle. I'm tempted to get this in and let it soak and deal with fallout.
Okay.
Oh, okay. I mean, that would work. That's how we did the whole CCM thing. So
just had a quick question. So we're deprecating the external ID method, but are we doing anything for deprecating the actual node?
Sorry, someone's typing, I think.
Yeah. Someone's typing, I couldn't hear what you said. Could you repeat that?
Yeah, so are we also deprecating the external ID field on the node spec, or are we just deprecating the method in the cloud provider interface?
Eventually the field should be deleted because we are using that like reference in kubelet node status.
Okay, if it's, I mean, like if we're going to do that eventually, we should start the deprecation for that field.
The field has been deprecated since Kubernetes 1.1, so it's been deprecated for like 2.5 years.
Okay, I thought you meant the method. Okay, cool.
Yeah, they both have been.
Awesome.
Okay, so right now my PR is passing all the tests. So, like, is there any action item which is required?
Well, have we? Sorry, finish what you were saying. Sorry.
No, like the current changes which I've done in the cloud provider method, those are basically passing all the tests. So will I be removing that field from NodeSpec or?
So you won't be doing that. So
yeah.
What we just spoke about was you also put in the changes from Mike's PR that involve the kubelet.
Okay. Yeah.
And then I don't know if you reached a consensus on this availability zone being in the format for GC and AWS. I don't know what the answer is. Are we just going ahead and ignoring it, or what, you said you can use something called map to AWS name and map to GC name or something? Where you just kind of strip out the name from the known format? Is that what you're going to do?
I mean, I can do, but Mike just suggested for now it's okay because it's
Oh,
not
got it.
affecting GCE and AWS.
Yeah, I think that the item here is.
I was just confused whether Mike is going to apply his changes after my PR gets merged, or like do I have to add the removal of field from API as well?
I think what you have now works. Even the kubelet change in your PR looks reasonable as an intermediate. I think what you have right now is probably mergeable.
Okay.
Yeah, I think the only action item left is just reaching out to someone in AWS, making sure.
Okay.
Or you know what, like even what Mike said is fine. Like, just merge it and then we'll find out if something breaks, as long as it's already in the release cycle.
Okay. Sounds good.
Okay, so the next item on the list is we have Mitra here today, who's working on the end-to-end tests, and she has a document for the gap analysis of what tests were missing from, or what tests are needed for the CCM that aren't already there in the existing end-to-end tests. Mitra, I'll let you take it over from here.
Yeah, it's still a pretty much an early stage document that I started putting together. I've been working with Srini from IBM to kind of segregate and figure out what needs coverage and what should be prioritized for conformance. And I'm working with a group of vendors to make sure we add coverage as well. So I would appreciate any feedback. I posted the document on Slack channel. External people might not have access directly, but if you request it, I'll add you. And Ben's tool for publishing results to TestGrid is also ready to use. And he submitted the PR last week. Ben is here as well. I can let him talk a little bit more about that.
Hi, so pretty straightforward. For TestGrid, you need to publish results to a publicly readable GCS bucket. There's some instructions around that. After that, if you provide this tool your log file and your JUnit results, the path to those, it can parse them to look for overall CSX failure, the start time, the finish time, and create the necessary metadata that TestGrid looks for, and upload those to GCS.
Is there a document that just details this out?
Yes. One moment.
Yeah.
See if I can get the chat pulled up. There is a README here. I'll also post to the work group Slack. And I would appreciate any feedback regarding the README or the tool. I'm happy to port it, enhance it, write more docs, whatever anyone needs.
So
Thank
this
you.
is a publicly readable bucket, but how do you write to it? Like, is there credentials we can pull someone, or what's the process for that?
We're asking you to set up a bucket, or to like, the other option you can have is if you can set us up with credentials to run jobs on a cluster or on your provider, then we can just use our existing Kubernetes CI to schedule jobs, which is even simpler for us than this. Or if you set up a bucket, we can tell TestGrid this is where the bucket is.
Okay, but it doesn't have to be GCS bucket, right?
I think GCS compatible. We could probably extend it to support other things if there were enough interest. So far, people have been fine enough with GCS, so that's just what we use for now.
Cool.
Yeah, I would love it if anybody tries it out and lets us know as well to publish results there.
So unfortunately, we don't have anyone here from OpenStack. They were the ones that were kind of leading this end-to-end testing. But Walter from GCE, I believe you're also from Google, right? And Ben?
Yep.
So,
And Mithra.
And Mithra, right. Walter, like, how do you do end-to-end testing now? Maybe Google can be the example for the rest of the cloud providers.
So actually, it's an interesting question because, in fact, Ben, myself, Mithra, and Mike. I actually had a meeting on this yesterday. So there are two parts to that. One, we cheat. That's the honest answer, in that if you look at all our end-to-end tests, most of them say, hey, if you're not GCE, skip the test. So we are the de facto default today, which is not actually, I think, a good thing. So right now we're getting by just by the fact that we are the de facto standard. One of the items that Ben, myself, Mithra, and Mike are going to be working on is getting it so that we're not the default standard and that we're running in our own cloud provider GCP repo. But that's work that's still largely to be done. I think actually the best person to talk about this is probably Ben. He has some pretty good ideas, and I know he and a few others have been working on trying to make this as cloud provider agnostic. And with that, I think I'm actually going to turn it over to Ben.
I'm not actually sure exactly what to speak to there. There's a lot of moving parts. Do you have anything more specific you want to know about?
I would really, just kind of have someone like Google or GCE be the example end-to-end testing repository for the other cloud providers to follow, because I feel like like you said, there's a lot of moving parts, and it's been quite a struggle for us to get the end-to-end tests done for the CCM so far.
So do you mean like having end-to-end tests up and running?
Well, or a repository that people can just follow and kind of use as an example to have their own end-to-end tests.
I think
also,
that would be test infra. For Kubernetes and project, we're already running pretty extensive sets of tests that are largely against GCE. I'm going to set up a specific test grid dashboard for conformance tests with GCE and some other things. But
okay.
At the moment, we haven't need to because a lot of the tests are kind of a superset, and there hadn't been as much of a push for this yet. But it will look pretty similar to how we're running our existing tests because we have a pretty large structure for that.
Okay.
And to sort of, I think there's kind of a both answer. So Mike right now has a PR out to do the initial put together of the repo, and then I'm going to be going in and trying to get everything, the CCM and a bunch of the deployment scripts working in the next couple of weeks, and then working with Mithra and Ben to do exactly what Ben said, which is we're planning on modeling our dashboard off of the dashboards Ben said. Mm-hmm. But when that's done, I think we probably could be a template of here's how you get everything going. But I think we're at least 3 or 4 weeks from that being a reality.
That's okay. Just that would be great. That would be great if we get to that point.
I mean, that's certainly our goal for this next release. Is we want to have an alpha version of this working. Alpha by our standards, which is to say we're telling customers, go ahead and try it out. Just please don't run prod on it.
Got it. Thank you, Walter.
I'm going to add another link here just to note that we're very interested in getting test results contribute using any and or all of this tooling. And in the past, we've worked with, for example, there's a lot of testing on AWS with COPS. So if anyone is looking for help setting up tests, please file an issue with Test Infra, and we'll do the engineering productivity team working on that here at Google, and also some people at some of the other organizations, like people at Red Hat, will be interested in helping with that.
Is there any tooling for Test Infra to run tests against repos that aren't owned by the Kubernetes org?
Yes, we do now already.
Okay. Is there a doc for that, or?
I mean, it's not any different than running tests that are under the Kubernetes org. And for the moment, as long as they're somewhat loosely associated, we just run them anyhow.
Okay.
So Andrew, the next item is actually talking about is about what we talked about last week about getting SIG cloud status so we can actually sponsor new repositories for DigitalOcean, whatever new cloud providers we come up with. Do you want to give us an update on what happened there?
Sure. So yeah, as you guys know, last week or 2 weeks ago, we opened up the cloud provider repos for AWS, GCP, Azure, and OpenStack. And so we also want to facilitate a way to create and own repos for smaller, like the other cloud providers. So right now, I think it's DigitalOcean, VMware, and Alibaba Cloud that might be on the list. But essentially, what we want is a way. Essentially, what we want is some sort of process where we can create a repo for any new cloud provider that joins that wants to support Kubernetes. And so pretty much last week I went to the SIG-ARC meeting and asked if SIG-ARC can kind of sponsor temporary repos for those cloud providers, because within the Kubernetes org, you need to be in a SIG, or like only SIGs can actually own repositories or code. And because we're a working group, we don't really have that ability. So right now we're going to be doing some work to kind of promote this working group to a SIG. And so as part of that, we're going to have to define a bunch of requirements that a cloud provider satisfies in order for us to create a repository for them. Yeah. So I'm at the point where like I'm still thinking of like what that's going to look like, but I haven't really started any official work there.
Okay. Yeah, that was going to be my next question. Do you have like a document or something that we can look at?
Yeah, so I'll be adding to the KEP document that was recently merged by Caleb. So there'll be like a section in there saying requirements for new cloud providers. In terms of like how to promote our working group to a SIG, I'm going to be I'll probably ping Caleb on how to move forward with that.
There's on the Kubernetes community repository. There's a clear set guidelines for how to do it.
Sure, I'll look at that too.
So the other thing that I wanted to talk to you about, Andrew, was you brought up a bug with the upgrade path last week, where when we onboard a new cloud provider, one that hasn't already existed before, the upgrade path is broken because whatever was obtained without a cloud provider it has to now rely on the cloud provider. Have you had a chance to look into it a little bit more? Do you have an update on that?
Yeah, so I was going to create an issue last week, but then there's still some implementation details I need to hash out before I actually report the issue. Okay. So pretty much on my end, I'm just doing more testing and making sure like finding out which fields are actually missing when you do the upgrade. But yeah, as soon as I know more information on that, I'll post an issue.
Okay, thank you. Definitely tag us. So the next issues were actually meant for OpenStack guys, Dims and Chris Hodge, but they're not here today. But I see there's two people from EKS. So Mika and Matt, welcome. Hey.
Hey, thanks.
Absolutely. So I spoke to Nick, and Nick said, first of all, Nick is not added into the cloud provider, the new cloud provider repository as an owner. And I was wondering, are you guys on it? So first of all, do you know what's going on with the new cloud provider repositories, Matt and Mika?
Yeah, this is Micah. I'm actually pretty new, so I'm just jumping in, trying to get an idea of what's going on here. I've attended SIG AWS more in the past. I'm not sure where Nick is today, but I know that he's been involved here. As far as owners, I have to get back to you on that. Not sure who's going to be quite point person on participating in this working group / SIG, but we can definitely get that. Yeah, we can maybe talk about that in the next week or two.
Okay, sounds good. So just to give you a small overview of what's going on, do you guys already know what the Cloud Controller Manager does and why it exists?
Yeah, it's basically the interface for the cloud controlling cloud specific resources, and it's this working group is for splitting out that from the regular Kubernetes Controller Manager into each taking their own repos, so that each sort of team can iterate on at their own pace and release at their own pace.
Right. So one of the things we did in that process was we created a repository within the Kubernetes organization for each of these cloud providers. We've created one for Amazon AWS already, and in order to start contributing to it, I'm not sure who the owner is at this point. It might be the people that are actually maintaining the AWS cloud provider today in Kubernetes core. I think just in Santa Barbara. But we'll need an actual representative from the cloud, if I understand correctly. And also, if you're going to be participating on creating the cloud control manager for AWS, it would be good to have you here every week, and we can help you answer questions about how to go about doing it, how to add tests, which we were just talking about earlier, how to add docs and all that.
Yeah, that's great. I know I can definitely bring this up too at the SIG AWS call this Friday to talk about who's I know Justin's involved and we can figure out who can be involved in that.
Awesome. Okay. So is there anything else someone people wanted to bring up?
So on the SIG cloud front, after talking to Caleb, it seems like that could take a couple of months.
Mm-hmm.
So in the meantime, that means like if anyone comes up to the working group asking for a repo, that's pretty much the status of it. And if anyone wants to kind of help write the doc or whatever, please let me know.
Okay, so when we write the KEP, Andrew, can we just add a note saying until SIG cloud is actually a reality, we're not going to accept any new cloud providers?
Sure.
Yeah, because there'll be a document that we can show to people.
Yep, sounds good.
Thank you.
What do you mean we won't accept new cloud providers?
So we can't add DigitalOcean into the Kubernetes org yet. Yeah,
I mean it's not a strict requirement to like add support for your cloud on Kubernetes, but the idea is that a lot of cloud providers would prefer to have a repo that's owned by the
okay. So we're
can use test infra whatever set up in the org.
No, that's fine. So we're just saying whether or not we'll create a repo for you is prevented. Okay.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I should have said it in this way. It's just the repo isn't allowed. We still allow new cloud providers to just integrate. We don't stop them anyway. Is there anything else anyone wanted to bring up? Okay. Thank you so much. See you all next week.
Thanks. Bye, all.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.